Boker Tov, I left you with a cliffhanger yesterday. Today is Erev Rosh Hashanah. And I raised the question with you all, how many days of Rosh Hashanah are there? Should there be? So we know the answer. Rosh Hashanah is Yom HaZikaron. It's one day. The day of the new moon. Is also the new year. Right? And there were special sacrifices brought for that, and it should have been just one day. And when you initially they functioned that way, but then when the witnesses sometimes came too late, they started getting anxious about it. So they made a decree: no gimota yom kodesh umachar kodesh. They decided that this day and the next day are kodesh, and that's how we have 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Now there's an interesting discussion about whether or not that is how things. The Gemara goes on to discuss this actually. Okay, what happens in Israel and what happens in Chutz La'aretz? And because generally in Israel, we only keep 1 day of holidays because we can know. But here, the point being, right, we can't even know for certain because the day is based on the Rosh Chodesh, which is today. Hope that's not too confusing. If it's a holiday happens in the middle of the month, the 15th, like Pesach and Sukkot happen, so by then you certainly know when Rosh Chodesh was and you count the days. But if today is possibly the new moon and the new year, or it's possibly not, so how do I function? And so that seems to be how the Chacham decided, you know what, we're going to treat this, because of the concerns they had and how we function, we'll treat both days as Kodesh. There is a disagreement amongst the Rishonim about what happened in Israel later years, because Yochanan ben Zakkai seems to have changed things about accepting witnesses, especially because it wasn't a temple anymore. And so those concerns weren't there. Yochanan ben Zakkai said we'll accept witnesses even later in the day, because they still accepted witnesses and established the months based on the witnesses. And so there's a disagreement amongst the Rishonim whether that is actually a question just about the egg, Shiloh, which we talked yesterday, or was it actually a change in practice once more in Eretz Yisrael, in Israel, to only keep 1 day? And the disagreement amongst the medievalists as to what the status was. What the status was in Israel, and some say it was only once the Provençal Jews came from Provence at a later point that in Israel they started keeping 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Others said it was always kept 2 days of Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai never undid it. We outside of Israel, we keep 2 days of Rosh Hashanah because the Gemara seems to say because the old decree never got undone. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai changed things maybe in Israel, but didn't change things outside. So Rav and Shmuel kept their position, which means that maybe the second day of Yontif isn't considered to be a suffix, an uncertainty of what day it is, but rather this other principle that's sort of created by the Chachamim of one long kedusha, one sanctity that continues from one day to the next, and it's the ongoing sanctity of Rosh Hashanah. I offer you the bracha that you should feel the kedusha of this holiday, even as we might sit outside and not inside, in our canopies that we'll be setting up. We have set up already; they're already up. As we daven together, and for those of you who are not going to be able to be with us, that even in your homes you can even feel some of that energy that's happening across town from our gathering, and that this year that follows, be a year that is holy. We should feel the kedusha, the sanctity of this day, not only from one day to the second day of Rosh Hashanah, but forward, and may it be filled with the blessings that we all want for one another. A blessing of, firstly, of peace, a blessing of health, good health, that we should be able to emerge from the dangers that we know surround us right now and health-wise, and the blessings that we should be able to be together. There's so much promise and there's so much good that we are expecting and hoping for. May we merit to share that together. Wishing you a Shana Tova, L'Shana Tova Tikatevu, from our family and our congregation to you, and I know from you to others as well. Shana Tova Tikatevu.